Most people have no idea what it looks like to do what they do. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Thought Partner channel. My name is Brian Seppi. I am excited to be here. It's Thursday. I said I would be back. It's a new behavior that I am trying to create, a new habit loop that I am trying to create, getting these ideas out of my head and putting them out there as content and documenting my process. For those of you who are new to this channel, this is the Thought Partner channel. I believe dearly that everyone deserves a thought partner, someone they can think and learn alongside in order to pursue their personal growth and development. In this episode, I want to talk about slow behavioral change. This is the thing that I am learning about this week. Those behaviors that you want to change, maybe they're really small at first. Maybe you're looking at changing the way you eat. Maybe you're looking at changing your exercise regimen. Perhaps you're trying to get better in conversations. Whatever your small little window of behavioral change is, there are some really clear tactics and awareness principles that you have to have. And I want to go through those today as they apply to me. And now I do want to mention two books that are really influencing the way that I think about this and what I've learned and have really shaped the way that I'm applying these principles to my life. So the first one is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And the second one is slowly becoming my favorite, which is Tiny Habits, BJ Fogg's work. Now, when it comes to these small changes that we wish to make, I'm going to take you through the big principles, but I'm going to talk about a few examples that I'm working through right now and how they might actually help you identify some areas. As BJ Fogg talks about it in Tiny Habits, when we've done a behavior or a routine over 1,000 times, let's say, we often don't know what it looks like. It just sort of happens. It happens on autopilot. For me, that's something like coming downstairs in the morning and getting the coffee ready. I can't really tell you how it looks. I just know that it happens. And because it happens that way, there are things that we can overlook in that routine or in that behavior. And as I mentioned at the outset, people, myself included, don't often know what it looks like to do what it is they do. It's unclear what I look like when I'm teaching a class full of kindergartners. It's unclear what it looks like when I'm demonstrating a lesson for a classroom full of fifth graders. So I have to create some conditions for understanding what that looks like. And let me tell you a quick story. So I was running and I was at about mile 5 and this car slowly drives by me and then stops up ahead. Now at this point, I'm a little nervous and I'm sort of running down the street in the same direction. This car is stopped. It's got its brake lights on. And I realize this guy is waiting for me. And he says to me, he pops down his window and he says, "Hey, I see you running out here all the time, like all the time. Can I give you a tip?" And I said, sure. Yeah, no problem. So I bent down to tie my shoes to kind of disengage from the conversation for a minute, but curious still about what he had to say. And he says, "I've watched you run so much, and every time I pass you, your feet are going out to the sides, and then you're kicking them back in. Are your knees hurting?" And I said, "Well, my knees aren't really hurting. I feel like they're in a pretty good spot, but my right knee every once in a while does feel like it's hurting a little bit." For him to stop and tell me about what he's seeing as I'm running raised my self-awareness. It helped me recognize that, in fact, there might be something going on that I'm just not aware of. So I appreciated his comment. I said, "Thank you so much. It's something I'll work on." He gave me a tip for making sure that I get going a little bit more linear with my chest leaning forward a little bit and my head up. So I took his advice. I finished the run and I went back and I got curious. So I set up the camera. I ran down the street and I tried to capture what it looks like when I'm running without thinking about it. Now, the problem here is I already had some awareness from the tip from this gentleman. So I applied that tip and things didn't look as bad on film as I thought they would. But the point is, I have new awareness. I have an idea of what it looks like when I'm doing an activity. Now, if I wanted to make some changes because of this awareness and because of my will to want to change, I can do that now. So I applied these steps, tried to raise my head, lean my chest forward, get going in a linear direction, and things have started to work out. Now, the key here is in a few weeks, I'm going to go ahead and record myself again. Now, the recording wasn't all that good because it was stationary, so I do have to have probably my son follow me down the road a little bit so that we can capture some of this. The point is, once you have awareness, then you can start to design for change. Once you have awareness, as BJ Fogg puts it, you want to clarify your aspiration or the outcome you seek to make in this behavior. So for me, with the running example, I wanted to correct my form so that I became a little bit more efficient, one, but I also was able to avoid injuries, two. So the aspiration or the outcome is to work on my form. Another area where I'm applying this right now is that I want to be better in conversations. I want to show up for my colleagues, for my students, for my peers, wherever I am on campus, in whatever capacity I'm serving, I want to show up better in conversations. I want to be the type of listener that can not only listen with deep empathy and understanding for somebody else, but the idea that I can capture what it is they're saying and really do that deep listening work. Okay, so now that you've clarified your aspiration or your outcome, and it's always key to write that down, by the way, the next thing you want to do is think about what are the behaviors that would match that aspiration or that outcome. If I'm in a conversation with all of you and I'm sitting here doing this on my phone, you can see how that's problematic. So now I've got to think about what actions can I deploy that can match the aspiration or the outcome that I'm seeking. So one of them is to put the phone away, and not just away somewhere where I can still see it or it's in eyesight, but literally leave it behind me or in my bag. That would be an example of matching a behavior, a simple, tiny, small behavior that putting my phone away behind me out of eyesight when I'm engaged in a conversation with somebody. So now I've kind of matched the behavior to the aspiration. Now, there are many other behaviors that I can get into around these simple steps, but it's important to note that once you have the aspiration or the outcome clarified, then you can start to get into matching some behaviors. Another example of matching those behaviors to my aspirations is when it comes to that running form that I talked about. The simple statement or the aspiration is correct that running form to become more efficient as a runner. Some behaviors that can help with that are watching other YouTube channels on running so that I can learn proper form. That's a simple activity that I can do to become better as a runner. Once I've learned those drills or those activities, then I can go and practice them before my runs or during my runs. So assuming that you have the willingness to want to change an area or a behavior in your life, putting these 3 steps in place can really optimize that behavioral change that you're seeking. That first one is to get a clear picture of what it looks like now. So like before you start to implement some strategies or some of these changes, get a clear picture of what it looks like now. Identify it first. Next is to clarify that aspiration. What's the outcome you're seeking to make? Now, here's the thing. If you can't get it to be concise and clear on paper, it's probably too convoluted and complicated to go after. As I mentioned in my examples before, I wanted to be a better listener, right? Being a better listener is pretty simple to write out. It's very clear. We all know what that looks like. Or correcting my running form, that's very simple, right? Keep it simple. Not easy, but simple. Once you've clarified it and you've written it down and you've committed to it, now we think about identifying behaviors that are going to match that aspiration or that outcome. So there you have it, a few simple steps that you can deploy in your own practice to get those changes that you want in your own behaviors. I hope this helped you in some way. It sure helped me to talk it through, be your thought partner here. I really appreciate you being here, and I will be back next week with another video. And as always, thanks for being here.